from LPI Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. It's R&R on Sports with Uncle Howard, Howard Robertson.
Kobe retiring, making this the farewell tour.
Jennifer Conroy.
We were just talking about Ali, is that he was engaged in what people would consider a violent sport.
And the magnificent Larry Robinson.
It's really hard to plan for a game against Golden State Warriors because they play such a non-traditional form of basketball.
It's R&R on Sports.
I'm loving this. Hello and welcome to a little R&R on Sports. I'm Howard Robertson.
And I'm Jennifer Conroy.
And I am the fantastic, the amazing, the extraterrestrial, the superfluous, the awesome. It's Larry Robinson, and what's up, America? What's happening?
I don't think he knows what those words
He
mean.
forgot one. Extra silly.
Extra silly.
Yeah. Welcome back. Jennifer.
Hey.
You're here.
Did you miss me?
I did. Now, hey, look, wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
We had discussion about this. The message that we got said something about smoking.
Were you smoking?
What was smoking?
What were you smoking?
Who was smoking?
Oh, my vehicle was
what
smoking.
What were you smoking?
Oh, your
My vehicle was
What was your
smoking.
vehicle
What you meant?
smoking?
Because there may or may not be an oil leak, or it could have been oil that was spilled and was burning
Wait.
off.
Oh,
Why
we
didn't you
made a
do
mistake.
Uber, Lyft, something? You know, you're just dropping us too easy, baby. I
You sent me
appreciate
a
that.
message 30 minutes before you wanted to have me
We
here, and I
told
live more than
America-
30 minutes away.
We told America you weren't here because she was smoking. And, I mean, that was grossly
You know,
incorrect.
I live in
So,
Memphis, and you'll never get nowhere smoking the pipe. I've got hope in my veins.
Quit. You don't know nothing about that. That was a long time ago.
I know all
Oh,
about
my
that.
goodness. How y'all doing? Happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend, man.
Lots happening.
Okay, first we gotta pay homage to the Queen.
Pat Summit.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, in
Queen.
terms of wins
She was the king.
on the D1 collegiate level, she was the king and queen.
Yeah, there you go.
More games, more wins than any other coach
Ever.
in history
Yeah. Any other D1
on the college
coaches?
level.
Absolutely.
Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Pat Summit, a legend.
Absolute
a legend.
legend.
With a 100% graduation rate for
100%
players
graduation
that
rate.
completed their eligibility.
You remember when we had Tamika
So
Catchings
you know
on?
what? You know what? You could actually been Joanna Man and actually got your degree.
Oh yeah, I should wish for that. But you remember when we had Tamika Catchings on?
Yeah.
And she talked about the impact. She talked about the first day, Markel. She talked about the first day of practice with Pat Summit, and Pat Summit called her out because. And she said no coach had ever talked to her like that before, to tell her that, you know, they played defense at UT. She said she had always been the scorer, and you remember?
Yeah.
And she said Pat Summit was on the other end of the court with her back turned to her and called her out. She didn't even think she was looking. So it was incredible because she had to do that.
And you know what they were talking about?
What?
They were talking about practice, man.
Yeah.
Practice.
Practice.
Yeah.
Practice.
Yeah, what my man does not do. We got a great show. We got a lot to talk about.
What
We're
we
going to
got?
talk about the draft. We're going to talk about the Olympics. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. And we've got, as our ICONversation guest, the one, the only, the incredible Dr. Harry Edwards.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Talking about Muhammad Ali and the Golden State Warriors and LeBron James and everything and everybody. So, hey, y'all, in the right place.
At the
You
right
tuned
time.
At the right time.
At the right time. With the right people.
Okay. You
Well,
got any,
if you
got
with
any
me,
more
if you
rights?
if you with me, you always with the right people.
But you're superfluous. That means technically we don't need you.
Superfluous, yes. That means insignificant.
Is that what that means?
That does. That does.
Oh,
Just
there you
fluff.
go. Say-
you are fluff.
Well, that's what that good old public school education will do for you.
And with that, we are going to give you a chance to LMAO right now, right here. Don't go anywhere. Check this out.
We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me?
Did you happen to see what that boy Danny Ainge did to my Celtics?
I sure did.
I mean, my Celtics, I've been in obscurity for too dang on long.
Can we just go ahead and put him in the leprechaun
Celtics
seat?
had a bunch of draft picks, but who they got, they seem they should have traded them to Netflix. The only name you can really pronounce is Jaylen Brown. They had 8 picks in the first and second rounds.
I just don't
But
understand.
before they
I
put
really like
on
that
that
James Brown.
Celtic green,
He gets down.
y'all better check their green cards. Like Annie Zig Danny and the
Who the
Celts.
hell is Annie Zig?
I think it's Tic Tac.
What in the world were y'all thinking of? Y'all could have drafted my cousin Day Day.
They can
Ainge bought a green suit and some green boots and a gleaming green Bentley. Oh, Danny and the Celts.
I tell you, I am so disappointed with that boy Danny Ainge. You got that coach over there, Brad Stevens, who looked like a little leprechaun himself.
Maybe they're a club.
Their club?
They're a club.
Is it Harry?
Most of these
Maybe
guys
they at the
just
end of the
started
rainbow.
playing last week, so their whole entire games, they really need to be tweaked. In 7 or 8 years, they might get through the playoffs first round.
They ain't gonna make the first round. They ain't gonna make the second
Can't
round.
nobody shoot,
Nope.
but they may lead the league in rebounds. But before they put on that Celtic green,
Don't put it
y'all
on.
better check their green
It's
cards. Yeah, Yabusele, Danny and the
Who
Celts.
the heck is Yabu Sally?
What in the
That's
world
right.
were y'all thinking of? Y'all could have drafted my nephew Ray Ray.
Ray Ray, come get drafted
Don't quite
now.
know where it went.
Ray Ray got a
But the money
prosthetic leg.
spent, that goes that
He can
gleaming
still
green
fly.
Bentley. Oh, Danny and the Celts.
That's boy, Danny. I'm tired. I'm tired of my teams losing all the time. I'm tired of my teams.
We got some Gershon, Yabu, Silly, all your stuff to come on over.
I need a pack of zigzags.
You can get him at the gas station.
What about Abdul Nader?
He's in the UN.
Was that under Nebraska?
Well, I think so. I think he organized the exit of Europe from.
That's
Y'all
not
should have drafted my
Nebraska.
nephew Ray Ray.
Well, that's his name. We already had one Abdul before.
Well, you know, I
he worked
thought
out pretty good.
Demetrius was one of those names that I always said it was one of those guys from that side of town. But I'm
Danny
kind of
and the
glad to see
Celts.
Demetrius' name.
Well, I can pronounce his name.
You can pronounce Demetrius?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, that Jalen is...
Come on over.
Zigzag. I need a pack of zigzags.
You can get him at the gas station.
What about Abdul Nader?
He's in the UN.
Was that under Nebraska?
Well, I think so. I think he organized the exit of Europe from.
That's
Y'all
not
should have drafted my
Nebraska.
nephew Ray Ray.
Well, that's his name. We already had one Abdul before.
Well, you know, I
he worked
thought
out pretty good.
Demetrius was one of those names that I always said it was one of those guys from that side of town. But I'm
Danny
kind of
and the
glad to see Demetrius.
You like that, JC?
I do like
That's
that.
different. That's different. That was different. But speaking of the
I think
draft,
Danny Ainge might be a leprechaun. I'm not sure. It's possible.
He could
yeah,
dress him
with
up.
the green suit,
No,
and the
you know
green
what?
gators,
He'd be perfect.
green
I think
suit,
Brian
green gators,
Stevens-
and a gleaming
I think
green
Brian
Bentley.
Stevens is better. Is a better leprechaun than Danny Ainge.
Okay.
He's sitting on the bench.
But before we get into that, this is top of mind.
Look what he taught me, Howard.
Y'all hear that? Yeah. We
These are
have
the
guests
things I'm
in the
learning
studio.
here.
Y'all hear that? Are you impressed? Oh
Yeah,
no! Oh no!
absolutely.
Don't!
See,
No!
there you
No!
go.
Don't!
I keep
don't.
telling you.
Please don't.
Listen.
Don't encourage
They not
them.
crying.
I am
Oh,
available on
my
iTunes.
goodness.
I'm
Oh, my
available on
goodness.
iTunes.
I'm gonna put you on the
CD
bar mitzvah
baby.
circuit.
Oh man, please! You know I do national anthems around the country.
Do you do them as well as Roseanne Barr?
No, I do them. I'm a
grab
highly
himself.
regarded. I'm a highly regarded soprano. So Liz, I'm tired of y'all hating on me. And y'all gonna have to get y'all's act together.
Anyway, let's talk about the draft. A few things that stand out. I don't know if y'all saw it, but
Man, I think Ben Simmons is really feeling himself.
Yeah.
I mean, he for a young man coming into the league, he's talking a lot of smack And I'm saying, wait a minute, dude.
You think he can back it up? Do you think it is?
I think he's gonna.
Is appropriate?
We're gonna see. I'm just not used to. I'm not used to a rookie coming in calling out LeBron James. I'm not used to.
He didn't
generally
really
not a smart
call him
move.
out.
We're talking
He
about.
didn't really call him out.
Well, I
Come
mean,
on.
listen.
Oh, but
for
he
you to
did.
even bring up LeBron James,
don't let his name come out of your lips.
Right,
Is that what you're
right.
saying?
I mean, you don't deserve
He
that.
cannot
Be
evoke the
respectful.
name of LeBron
Be
James.
respectful. I mean, you're talking about a cat that's been 6 straight finals, 7 finals in all, who's done some phenomenal things and just brought Cleveland the first championship in 50 some odd years. You have no business talking about. You need to be talking about your training.
Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you what I saw. What it appeared to me. It appeared to me that the NBA sent a message, and I really hope that Cal got it. And here was the message. The message is, you know what? We would rather have a foreign player that we feel has potential and is fundamentally sound than somebody that was just one and done with you. Just one and done with it. We'd rather go that way. Cal had, after this, the initial kid who he went like 4 or 5.
Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray. Then he sat there for forever with Scal LaBissiere, who's from Haiti by way of Memphis.
Yeah.
But then he sat there with him until
How much money you think he
number
Scal
29.
lost?
And the reason Scal went at 29th is because of our friend, my nephew, Travis King, who's his agent, as opposed to anything Cal did. This was a kid that was not a starter. He averaged 5-point-something points a game and a few rebounds a game.
Okay, so I'm
and he goes 29th. That's not because he spent a year with Cal.
But I mean, I know you hate on Cal, and I know
I don't hate on him. I don't hate on him.
But I will say this. I will say this.
Okay, say it.
Is that what did you do when you dropped in the draft? What you doing when you dropped when your stock dropped in the draft? What did you do?
I went to do something else. I got a job.
Yeah, right.
I got a job.
Well, 28. A whole lot of people would love to go 28.
Oh no, it's no problem with that.
No. And then on top of that, if the NBA had a problem with it, then ESPN didn't, because Cal got to do the ESPN car wash with Karl Anthony Towns. So that was a big advertisement. I'm saying is, and he's still got about 30 players in the league right now. You can't fault Cal because of Scal.
I'm not faulting him.
Scal didn't do
fault
anything.
Cal because of Scal.
Well, I'm
not faulting him. I said, listen to what I said. I said
he's going to be a millionaire.
No problem with him.
He's going to be a millionaire.
They sent a message. They sent a message to Cal. They absolutely did.
He had 2 players in the.
They got all of these projects. All of these projects that they drafted ahead, and I think they sent a message to everybody saying, "Hey, we have a higher regard for these kids than we do."
You know what the real message was, though? The real message was that if Donald Trump becomes president, the way that you can get around immigration laws is we will draft you, because it was the highest number of foreign players ever in the draft.
Check their green cards.
So Mexico, y'all should start practicing right now.
Check your green cards. Check your green cards. Speaking of green cards, Danny Ainge
had about 30 picks. He had about 30
picks
in the draft.
mode.
You think he could have done better?
I don't know, because you don't know how good these players are. We didn't know how good Pau Gasol was before.
Yeah,
he
but
came.
you have.
We didn't know how. Last year, everybody was dissing. Phil Jackson because of Porzingis.
Yeah.
And literally,
Porzingis.
look at Porzingis now.
True.
You never heard of Porzingis. You didn't even know how to pronounce
But who's
his name.
he backing Porzingis up with now?
Saying, we didn't know.
Old and broken?
We didn't know Thon Maker. I mean, we have a lot of kids playing ball around the world. And with Basketball Beyond Borders and those type of programs, basketball is now the global sport. So there are going to be people that you don't know that come out to be phenomenal ball players, and just because you don't know their name, you can't diss them. So you don't know if Danny Ainge might have had the greatest draft of all time.
We will
But he could have
see.
used it for trade bait. Do you
We
know what
will
Thon
see.
Maker and Barack Obama have in common?
No, what's that?
Folks want to see their birth certificates. People do not believe
Yeah.
that Thon Maker is 19 years old, and they want to see his birth certificate.
Well, that is very true.
Olympics. Let's talk Olympics.
What, that I ain't going?
I ain't going either.
I ain't going. Zika, baby. Repeat after me.
The trials are taking place. Track is starting this weekend, I believe.
I've run so quickly out of that country.
That's
What about
fantastic.
dysentery? Can you say dysentery?
Can you say body parts on the beach?
There's no way.
Quit hating on
There's
Rio.
no way. There's
Stop
no
hating
way.
on
I ain't
Rio.
hating on nobody.
Okay.
But
Rio's going to have to bring out the waxes and the behinds to...
man, there's no way that I would be going if
And the
I was
problem
a
with that?
professional ball player.
That's how they got
if
the
I was
Olympics.
if I was a professional ball player, there's no way I would be going to Brazil. It's not going to happen.
If part of your
it's-
protocol for going to the Olympics is freezing your sperm, maybe you should not go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
So-
something to say. But listen, I am particularly impressed with Simone Biles. Simone Biles is the leading women's gymnast that's going, and this she's got to be maybe 4'9", 4'10", or
incredible.
something like that. And I am telling you, if she could palm a basketball, she could dunk it.
Okay.
She gets
Absolutely.
off the
So
floor
y'all just going
so high.
y'all just going to forget about Gabby Douglas?
No, Gabby Douglas is
Well,
like
don't
fifth.
be-
She's
don't
in
be
the top
dissing.
5. She's going. Nobody's
Gabby
dissing.
got a gold medal in the last Olympics, man. Y'all can't be
what do
dissing Gabby.
Who's
And Simone
dissing
is
them?
going to get them all.
You are diss crazy. You always talk. You need to be a dishwasher. You're always talking about this. No, look, nobody's dissing Gabby, but she's going and it'll be good. And who else? Swimmer.
Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps going for the 5th time.
Well, you know
Record.
record. He's Michael Phelps is a legend.
Michael Phelps is
a
Michael
legend.
Phelps.
Yeah.
And speaking of a legend, we have a legend on the other side of this with our ICONversation, Dr. Harry Edwards, with all kind of information for you. So don't go anywhere. Be back with us right after this.
R&R on sports with ICONversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch ICONversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Katsukian Network.
Hello, everybody. This is Tim Brown, 2015 NFL Hall of Fame inductee, and you are listening to R&R on Sports.
And we're back with R&R on Sports. And today, folks, we got a treat for you. I mean, you don't even know. I'm talking about sweet tooth kind of treat that truly is going to rock your world. So sit back, relax, and listen to the greatest, one of the greatest of all time sports sociologist, Dr. Harry Edwards. What's up, Doc? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing better than I deserve, believe it or not.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Well, you know, we got JC here in studio, and we got our other compadre, Howard Robertson, on the road. What's up, Howard?
Welcome back, Doc. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, we're going to jump right in. For you guys that don't know, Dr. Edwards is a sports sociologist. I mean, I'm talking about going all the way back with the black fist in the air with Tommy Smith and John Carlos, to working with the San Francisco 49ers as well as the Golden State Warriors. We're going to get to the Golden State Warriors and the recent NBA championship after the break. But starting off, Dr. Edwards, you were close personal friends with Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. What was it like in Louisville, Kentucky, when actually laying to rest the greatest of all times?
Well, I've never really been through anything quite like it, and I've attended some very notable memorial services, but I've never seen anything quite like this. I mean, to see 30,000 people, 30 to 40,000 people lining the route from the Undertaker parlor to the cemetery as they put him away, and then to go into a memorial service where there's another 25 to 30,000 people. And I mean everybody, from Native Americans to Buddhists, to Catholics, to Jews, to, of course, people of the Islamic faith, Christians, everybody there. Somebody asked me, there was a German reporter there who was covering it, and he asked me, what did I think? What do I take away from this? And what I took away from it was that I hope that our presidential candidates are looking at this so they'll get some sense of what real leadership looks like. When you can bring that many people together at a time that is as divisive as we are experiencing now in this
Hold on for a quick second, Doc.
Leadership.
Doc, for a quick second. Howard, I need you to mute it, man. People got to hear what Doc is bringing, and we getting too much road noise from you.
All right.
So I'm sorry, Doc. Go ahead and finish what you were saying.
No, I was simply saying that I hope that our leaders were watching the memorial service for Ali because they get a real sense of what leadership looked like. The numbers of people that were there, the breadth, the scope of people who were there across all religions, races, creeds, genders, and so forth. I mean, it really spoke to his message, not just to his generation, but to the generations.
Fantastic. Well, I'm telling you, being from Louisville, Kentucky, there was no prouder moment than seeing how Louisville treated the greatest of all times. You actually stated that the greatest of all times is not an adequate description for what Muhammad Ali means to us as human beings.
It's not an adequate description to really capture and encapsulate his contribution. I mean, you've got to ask the greatest compared to what? Compared to who? There's nobody else of his generation or any generation before him and since that has made the kinds of contributions he made. I mean, this was an individual who, by himself, literally by himself, made us really begin to think about religious freedom as something other than a historical and cultural cliche. We had to really consider our dispositions and attitudes toward war and peace. I mean, not just the brother on the block that was subject to the draft or the naive college student who was escaping the draft by being in college, but people such as Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy had to reconsider their perspectives on war and peace as a consequence of the heavyweight champion of the world saying, you know what, I have no reason to go over. They haven't given me a reason to go over there and kill anybody. We have to understand that his influence, his impact ran so deep that had he not put up the struggle for the legitimacy of his name, Muhammad Ali, and insisted that people call him Muhammad Ali and got it to the point that they not only accepted that but embraced it, there's absolutely no way that millions of people show up to vote at the polls for somebody with a funny-sounding name by his own admission like Barack Hussein Obama for president, not once but twice. He can give, that one goes directly to Muhammad Ali. So along with showing us that there's some things that have no price, there's no price tag on human dignity, on on principles. There's no price tag on self-respect. Along with all of those things, he has this broad swath of impact, and there's nobody else, not even a Paul Robeson, had that kind of an impact. So when you say the greatest compared to what? That doesn't even begin to encapsulate what he did. And in point of fact, what he did in the boxing ring might in the long term turn out to be the least memorable of his accomplishments and achievements and contributions.
Wow.
And this is R&R on Sports, and we are having mic drop moments with the fabulous Dr. Harry Edwards. Dr. Edwards, with Muhammad Ali being so much more than boxing, now that he is gone, how does his legacy stay in place and not get lost amidst what he did in the boxing ring?
Well, I think that we have to first continue to document and trumpet the scope of his contributions, because in American society there's this tremendous tendency to reduce particularly African American heroes and heroines down to a T-shirt cliche. So we think about Dr. King, and all you really hear about is "I Have a Dream." You think about Malcolm X, and all you hear about is "By Any Means Necessary." And they're already trying to reduce Muhammad Ali to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. We have to continue to document and discuss his broader contributions. The other thing that we have to realize is that today we can see farther, stand taller, and reach higher, principally because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And there was nobody bigger than Muhammad Ali. And to begin to understand the impact in sports, we have to understand that without Muhammad Ali and the movement of the 60s for dignity and respect, as opposed to simply access that Jackie Robinson and Joe Louis and Jesse Owens and that generation fought for, that movement for dignity and respect is precisely why you have people like Michael Jordan, you have people like Magic Johnson, you have people like LeBron James who can today make literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And we have to also continue to let them know that there's an obligation that comes with that. It's not just making the money, it's serving, it's contributing, it's helping to lift as you climb in terms of that aspect of your obligation and responsibility as you stand on the shoulders of the Muhammad Alis and the Bill Russells and the Jim Browns and the Smiths and Carlos and Kurt Floods and Arthur Ashes and so forth.
So given now that there is a generation to two-generation gap, are today's black athletes doing enough to carry the torch forward and to honor Ali's legacy in terms of being outspoken and making their feelings and their beliefs known?
Well, don't limit it to black athletes. Athletes, period.
Sure.
It's really too early to tell. I mean, you one looks back on the era of Jack Johnson and Joe Louis and Jesse Owens, and we see a particular historical perspective. We look back on Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby and Kenny Washington. We look back on Earl Lloyd in basketball, and we see a particular historical relevance. We are now looking back at the 1960s and that generation of athletes, and we see a particular historical relevance. Some things, such as history, it's kind of like a mountain. You really don't see the full contours and configuration until you're some distance away from it. And that's where we are with regard to this generation of athletes. The other thing that I would say is that no generation of athletes does things exactly and precisely the way the previous generation did. Being able to stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before enables you to reach higher and in a different direction than they were able to reach. So this generation is still contouring and configuring its contribution. But as I look at somebody like LeBron James and see the kinds of things that he's trying to do, even as he strives to achieve power, this generation doesn't want to simply have endorsements. They want to own the products that they endorse. Magic Johnson didn't want to be in movies like O.J. or Jim Brown. He wanted to produce the movies, own the movie theaters that showed the movies, and be part of the distribution. He didn't want to just be on a basketball team. He wanted to own a basketball team and a baseball team. So this struggle for power carries a different trajectory than the 1960s. So we can't look back and expect them to do things the way that we did them in the 1960s any more than Smith and Carlos were Jesse Owens, or Muhammad Ali was Joe Louis, or Bill Russell was Earl Lloyd, or the Harlem Globetrotters, or Jim Brown was Kenny Washington. Every generation finds its own trajectory and direction, but they all still manage to make a contribution, and that scenario is still being written by the current generation.
This is R&R on Sports, and we are talking with the great Dr. Harry Edwards. Doc, on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about LeBron James. We're going to talk about this Golden State Warriors team and what they mean in history. But we'll be right back after this. Make sure you come back because we got more to set your ears on fire.
Ricky Catchings, and you're listening to R&R on Sports.
People keep on learning. Soldiers keep on warring.
And we're back with R&R on Sports, and we have the great Dr. Harry Edwards on the second part of what is an amazing interview. Howard, you got a question on the road. What you got, Howard?
I do. Doc, you are tremendous at putting things in context. So if you would help us understand the context of some of the things that are happening now, some of the imprints on history that are going on now. And I mean everything from the history that Golden State made, that LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers made, Prince, his not being with us. What are we contextually, what are we looking at happening now in rapid succession right now as it regards popular culture?
Well, then the thing that we really have to wrap our minds around before we even begin to get into the substance of the information that's flowing in torrents toward us is the impact of the social media itself. It has changed everything. It is the most powerful factor in social change in the history of the world. We have yet to be able to wrap our mind around any kind of a management strategy in terms of dealing with it. So therefore, everybody from the pornography industry to ISIS to various marketing firms to people who are in charge of getting the vote out and so forth have all managed to take advantage of it, but nobody has been able to wrap their minds around how do we manage it as a power and force in human existence today, and that is going to become an increasingly more difficult problem to deal with. In terms of the Golden State Warriors, they had a wonderful year in terms of some goals that they reached, the numbers of wins and so forth and so on, but at the end of the day in sports, it's about one thing and one thing only, and that's championships. And if you don't win that championship, the thing that people will be talking about 30 years from now or 50 years from now about the 2015-2016 NBA season will be that the Cleveland Cavaliers came back and brought a championship back to Cleveland after, 52 years or whatever it was since Jim Brown and the Cleveland Browns won that NFL championship. So that's what people will be talking about. Nobody will remember the 73-game winning record. Nobody will remember the 29 or 30 in a row. Nobody will remember that Steph Curry set a record in terms of the number of threes and so forth. Now, you'll get some trivia wonks who will bring that up at the bar when the Warriors are playing and so forth. But the thing that people will remember and always do remember is championships. As far as the Cleveland Browns are concerned, I think, as far as the Cleveland Cavaliers are concerned, I think that what happened with that team and the impact that it had on that city is indicative of the power of sports to lift and raise and elevate the spirits, the hopes, and so forth of an entire region, not just a city. I saw it happen with the New Orleans Saints and Katrina. I watched it happen with the Dallas Cowboys in the wake of the Kennedy assassination. I watched it happen with the San Francisco 49ers in the wake of the assassination of the mayor and the city councilman and the HIV and AIDS crisis in Jonestown. I watched the 49ers lift up an entire region by virtue of going in there in 1981 and winning a Super Bowl. So you're looking at that same phenomena in Cleveland now, and I'm happy for them.
This is R&R on Sports, and we're speaking with sports sociologist Dr. Harry Edwards. Doc, you mentioned that LeBron James, and then you make the comparison that the fact that social media has really added a new dimension to activism and marketing and all those things. In your estimation, what would it take for an athlete of today to ascend to the level of a Muhammad Ali as far as how he's respected throughout the world?
I think that you're talking about somebody in Muhammad Ali who is so unique. I mean, you're talking about an individual who, over the course of his athletic career, became the most recognized human face on earth. That is something that is all the more absolutely unbelievable, given the fact that this was before social media. He didn't Twitter his face out. He didn't have tweets going for him and a whole bunch of networks and Facebook and so forth. This was before any of that. So now you're saying, what does a person have to do, even with social media, to reach that level? I don't think that we will ever see the like of Muhammad Ali again. Will we see something? Absolutely. But how much of it will be fluff and marketing and production and the fact that they have 500 million Twitter followers as opposed to somebody who actually took a stand and did something of some substance and contribution, that's another issue because, as I stated, the social media has changed everything. It has changed the very standard by which we evaluate what's relevant and what is not. So if you go on to social media today, you will find massive Twitters about unfortunately, some anatomical aspect of some woman's appearance right alongside the bombings in Turkey. So what does that mean in terms of reaching the status of a Muhammad Ali? How much of it is fluff? How much of it is substance? And what would a person have to do to reach that level of notoriety and relevance? Well, with the social media, until we understand its true impact and how to manage it, that's going to be a difficult one to measure.
Fantastic. This is R&R on Sports, and we're speaking with sports sociologist Dr. Harry Edwards.
Dr. Edwards, one of the conversations around the NBA Finals between the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers was team light skin versus team dark skin. I'd like to know your thoughts on that and the sociological impact of that argument on the sports culture.
Well, I think that that's something that was most certainly bigger outside of the locker room,
absolutely,
and outside of the league than it was in the locker room or in the league. My experience in having worked with professional baseball players, football players, and basketball players, when it comes right down to it, those guys don't care if you're a polka dot with green breath. If you can go out and hit the three, if you can help them win a game, then they're down with it. Now, as far as people outside projecting onto the developments inside of sport and the popularity of athletes based upon their skin color and so forth, you know what? I don't know how much of that is real and how much of it is surreal. I know that it's sick, but beyond that, I'm not sure of the relevance of it. But I do know that as far as those guys in the locker room are concerned, they couldn't care less. What they're interested in is, can this man, can this woman help us win? And if that's the case, it doesn't make any difference if they're turquoise with, pink toenails. As long as they can get the job done, then that's what matters.
Doc, Olympics 2016 are on the horizon, very, very close. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've been concerned about these Olympics since they were awarded to Rio de Janeiro because I was familiar with the history of the city, and I was also familiar with some of the contradictions and challenges confronting a political and social organization in that country. Unfortunately, the Olympics are like a beauty contest. There's no such thing as being, somewhat beautiful. If you're talking about a beauty contest, it's got to be a beauty contest. And it's the same way with the Olympics. You either put on the Olympics, and they are the world-class athletic, social, cultural event that they are projected and purported to be, or they are not. You can't do a pretty good job. In the same sense that there's no way you can go halfway to the 100 meters and run the first 50 faster than any time in history, but don't finish the race. So the Olympics in Rio are in trouble. I could not think of a worse combination of disease, political contradiction and turmoil, and social disruption, if not collapse, in terms of some of the circumstances surrounding the venues, some of the populations that are involved, some of the criminal issues and so forth, the lack of, they're looking at $825 million that they're looking for just to deal with policing and security issues that nobody has and nobody has donated. These games are in trouble, and I don't know, all of that combined with athletes dropping out, that they're going to be able to have the success that they need to have, given that these are the once in every 4 years Olympic Games.
If this was the Olympics with Tommy Smith and John Carlos, and you were advising them, would they attend the Olympics in 2016 on your advice?
I would not. There are so many issues that are involved that I would not undertake to advise them on that broader array of issues. Those are decisions that the individual has to make based on medical, security, and other kinds of grounds. The issues that I was concerned about in 1968 was the fact that our churches were being bombed, that our leaders were being shot down in broad open daylight, that our men, women, and children were being dribbled down the sidewalk with fire hoses like basketballs, that we were petitioning for our constitutional right to vote and were being lynched and beaten to death and stomped and dog-sicked on us and so forth in the process. And in the meanwhile, we're supposed to go over and have a big kumbaya moment on behalf of American democracy and the free world, which was an utter contradiction. We had moved beyond civil rights to an issue of human rights, and that's why it was the Olympic Project for Human Rights. That was my concern in 1968. In 2016, the issues involved have to do much more with these Olympics, the very safety, security, medical advisability of attending the games, and that's a decision that I think is up to each individual.
Dr. Harry Edwards, you are incredible as always. We appreciate your being with us yet again on R&R on Sports, and you know we're coming back. You're going to have to change your number to keep us from calling you back. I'm
good with that. Give me a call.
We look forward to having you back on, and we appreciate you being with us here on R&R on Sports, and we'll be back with more R&R on the other side of this.
I'm so darn glad it let me try it again, 'cause my last time on earth I lived a whole world of sin. I'm so glad that I know more than I knew then. Gonna keep on trying till I reach the highest ground.
R&R on Sports with ICONversation.
The Executive Director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently Managing Director and Chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch ICONversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Katsukian Network.
This is Dale Diff, GM of the New Orleans Pelicans, and you're listening to R&R on Sports.
And we're back on our way out of here, but before we bid
Sayonara.
you adieu,
Holla.
Shalom.
these people always do this.
Arrivederci.
They always do this.
Gesundheit.
Every time
Ciao.
they start saying goodbye before it's time to say goodbye.
Holla.
Hey.
It is the end.
Look,
Are you my friend?
listen. Be sure to go on rnronsports.com. That's rnronsports.com to check out our podcast and all things R&R. That's what you should do. JC, say something, please, so this boy don't start singing. Please, quick. Don't look at him. Don't look at him. Talk.
I can't look
Talk.
at him.
What
He's
you-
got me
what you got to say?
mesmerized.
No, check it out.
Parting
Check it out.
words, what you got?
Where's Durant going?
Is it a foregone conclusion he's going?
Should I stay or should I go?
Is he
What do you think? What do you think? Is
I
he
think
going
he
to
needs to
leave?
stay where he is.
I think he's going to leave.
I think he's going to leave.
Durant
I think he's
or
leaving.
Conley?
I think Durant is leaving. I think he's either going to go to Golden State or the Clippers.
If KD
Or the
goes to Golden
Clippers.
State, he's
Or the
going to
Clippers.
wreck it. He's going to
Clippers.
wreck the
San
whole
Antonio
thing.
in the mix.
I think San Antonio is.
Why would
but-
he go to the
Antonio's
Clippers
always in the
instead of
mix.
San Antonio?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he go to San Antonio. Just my thing is that I think, number one, he's going to go Golden State. Number two, I think he'll go to the Clippers because I think the Clippers can do a sign and trade, and he wouldn't leave OKC just totally.
I think you're going to see his real motivation, whether he's motivated for a ring or money.
He didn't hire
money.
Rock
If he's
Nation.
just motivation for money, he'll stay.
He did not hire Rock Nation and Jay-Z and all that cachet
To stay where he
in
is.
Oklahoma
Do the
City.
rock away.
So
Lean back.
All right.
Mike Conley, is he staying in Memphis or no?
He's staying.
If his promotional video has anything to do with it, he's out
Oh,
the
that's
door.
got to be
He's
Craig
staying.
Brewer laid another egg. That was the worst
He
video.
is not the conductor.
If
He
that
is
was
staying.
if that was Memphis's example of how bad they want him, I would be running as quickly
He
as
will
I
be
can.
impressed.
ballet.
He will be
terrible.
impressed because
That was
Justin
terrible.
Timberlake did it. He's staying. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Y'all have a great week. Get back with us. Stay with us. Don't ever leave us. Be with us here next week. Same time, same place for R&R on Sports. We are out.
R&R on Sports is recorded live at LPI Studios in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee. Web designer Daniel Coates, executive producer Larry Robinson, written by Howard Robertson. R&R on Sports, part of the Kudzukian Network.